All right, I'm back. Um, so the last time, what was I talking about? I was talking about being bad at books. But I made a point that I wanted to get back to in the last episode about why I think that similarly, like reading books and educating yourself, I honestly find video games to be just as important uh, of a medium as books are in terms of the types of stories that are being told and the types of lessons that oh my god stuff is happening, um, the types of lessons that it can teach you and stuff. Like, I'll use this game for an example. um, I think this is how I've always kind of gone about life. um, I've learned a ton by playing video games. So if I'm playing this game, right, and this is just the type of person I am, I become very invested in what is happening on screen. Um, hold on. Wait. What? Arctic Blast. Playing tennis. Oh, that's pretty cool. Whenever you cast. I don't know. This seems cool. I'll go for it. Whatever. I'm doing terribly this run, but okay. So like this game, I'm invested in the story, invested in what's happening. Kinda, if I wasn't focusing on playthrough. Um, but I'm infatuated with the world. Like, and this is just from an artist's brain as well. Um, I I'm in love with visually what it's doing. Um, the story, the characters, like where does it all come from? So me having that mind frame, I'm going to independently research what are all these things? What do they mean? Um, why did the developers put this much effort into what they're doing? Like, why did they design their characters the way they did? That's how I am with everything. I can't watch a movie or play a game without researching what it's about, why they did what. I want to know everything about it. So as I'm playing or watching or whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm constantly like having tabs on my computer open where I'm just researching and watching stuff and finding different like articles or books or like just video breakdowns, just finding every way I can to like what is this stuff. So obviously with this, like, Greek mythology is so rich, with its real world history and everything. There's countless things you can learn. And I think similarly, like the way books tell stories. Like, I think I've never. I was going to use Harry Potter for an example. And I'll use Harry Potter as an example. I think Harry Potter is not just, and I've only read like one of the books, and I haven't seen all the movies, but I think from what I can see, the way it tells stories, it's important. I think similarly, like what I said about 1984, these are stories that teach you things. They teach you lessons about life, like depending on what they're about. It's hard to use Harry Potter as an example because I haven't actually read most of it or whatever. But like, I'll use my favorite book, Jurassic Park, as an example. If you never read Jurassic Park, similar to the movie, but also very different. And it goes much more in detail about the whole man versus God complex. The characters are much more flawed as well. Like, on screen, the dialogue, most of the dialogue is ripped straight from the book, but that's in the movie. But in the movie, you know, Jeff Goldblum and everybody, they're all fabulous looking, and, you know, they all kind of, most of them get a happy ending, and only the way it is in film, there's usually good guys and bad guys. So usually, you know, most bad guys get their comeuppance, and they're just kind of bad, and you want to see them get what they got coming to them and all that kind of stuff. In the book, you know, things are a lot more, how do you want to say, they're not as black and white, and I like that. And that's how it usually is, like, on paper with stories, like, and that's how it is with a lot of manga and comic books. Characters are much more flawed and human, and there isn't as much, like,
get me out of here.
You can't just pick a side very easily with characters in books. And I feel like it forces a dilemma upon the reader, I guess you could say. Like, again, if I'm using the Jurassic Park analogy, Jesus Christ, I'm fucking up here. What is his name? John Hammond, the guy who runs the park, right? In the movie, he's very he's an eccentric billionaire, but he's seen as like a empathetic kind of guy who's like he's a dreamer, and he really wants to show people a fun time. He's really just trying to do the next big thing, and he's got this big fucking dream that he's working towards or whatever. In the book, he's really kind of an asshole billionaire who's, the whole god complex is really played up to his effect, to where it's not so much about putting together, you know, this dream park where everyone can have fun. Oh geez, my buttons aren't working. But in the book, it's more about he is going to be, like, it's his legacy at stake. Like, he wants to be remembered as, like, he's doing it because he can, more so. Like, resurrecting the dinosaurs and... Oh, did I? I wasn't even fucking paying attention, but I was killing shit. Here. Yeah, you can have this now. Yeah!
But I
want me to take that off your hands, fine. But you are taking this from me. And if any...
Alright, I'm just trying to give you a little something, bro. Yeah, see, we're just friends, you and me.
I don't need your help here.
It wasn't being offered. Just happened to be in the area.
Yeah, we're just friends. And in the book, John Hammond doesn't really give a shit about the grandkids. And I won't spoil anything, but there's a lot of different outcomes for a lot of different characters. And it's different. But the story of Jurassic Park in the book is far more riveting than the one in the movie. The movie is an exciting spectacle of cinema. I mean, it does everything that a movie should do, right? You know, now I won't get into all of the semantics of what makes Jurassic Park a great film, but if you have not read the book, it truly is. It's an interesting story, and it's a lot darker than the movie, and it doesn't have a feel-good kind of ending, or it doesn't have a sense of wonder. It really has a sense of dread and kind of it's melancholy in a way, and at the very end, the epilogue kind of leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth. And I like that about it. It's pretty dark. And not just dark because, like, it's gory. Like, it gets fucked up at times. And that's the thing that makes books riveting, right? Because they tell stories in a way, they're much more human. In a film, typically, or like a big blockbuster film like that, people are pretty and everything works out, or, you know, good guys are good, bad guys are bad kind of thing. Whereas in a book, things aren't so straightforward. And there's a lot more dilemma. The protagonists have far more flaws. I'm probably going to die here. Because I've been fucking up a lot. And I've been using that. What is my computer freaking out about? What was I going to say? So, I feel like that about certain video games, right? So, you have, like, your certain video games, like, Zelda is kind of akin to, like, an Avengers movie, right? Where it's all about the adventure and just having fun with the characters while you're there, right? You're just there for the good time. For the most part, that's how Zelda games are, right? But something like a Final Fantasy game, especially Final Fantasy VII, is the part I'm getting into about like the stories being riveting in video games and how they're akin to like a book, the like maturity of a book. I think Final Fantasy VII is a very Shakespearean kind of story, and I say this a lot, and I think the characters are very in-depth, and I do think the story in Final Fantasy VII is one of the greatest stories in fiction, to me, ever told, personally. God damn it. And part of that, I think I talked about this in one of the videos that I messed up on, where I like had the wrong mic recording. But so, I won't spoil anything in Final Fantasy VII if you haven't played it yet or don't know the story. I mean, if you play video games, I can't imagine you don't know what happens in that game by this point. But not just the death of a certain character in it, but there's a very particular point in the game where there's a revelation from the main character. And it's different. It's I don't know how I want to say it. It's mainly like usually in a video game, right? Or like an Avengers story or whatever the case may be or whatever. Like I said, everything's black and white and the good guys are good. And that's usually how it is in a video game. Like in Zelda, Link is always going to be good. He's always going to be the guy. And that's usually how the protagonist is in a video game. But in Final Fantasy VII, in the original,
We'll have you back here soon.
it's much... There's much more to break down. And the main character isn't quite a good guy, and not just because he's kind of a dick at the beginning, but like there's a lot more to his character, and there's a point where he essentially betrays the player's trust, which is interesting in a video game where, you know, the protagonist, the main character that you control, is who you are vicariously experiencing the narrative through. I'm not going to get very much further, so I'll just go for the money, I guess. So I think things like that, and not just Final Fantasy VII isn't the only game to play, so I think it's just a good example, a good classic example of how good storytelling can be. If you haven't played Final Fantasy VII, like, or really just like, you got to experience it, because it really is like, the story, when you really break it down for all its subtle nuances and everything it kind of does, it truly is something different. I can't quite... I'd have to really break it down in a whole different video, but it's one of those games I look at that if people think video games aren't mature or anything, they haven't experienced a video game like that. Let's go right here. But to kind of finish up that point at the end of this video, basically, video games can have extremely complicated narratives with riveting characters that tell stories that are on par with any other fucking play or Shakespeare or like any book or whatever it is, that can tell just as, if not more, riveting stories because you are experiencing it firsthand. Video games have an element that no other storytelling medium has, and that is the fact that you yourself, you're not an audience member. You are the pilot of the story, making the events unfold. And in some games, you are the deciding factor in those choices of what happens. Which is why I think video games are, in a way, they break the fourth wall. They do the fourth wall break on every level, where not only is it confronting the audience, but the audience is the thing making the story happen. And I think that shouldn't be underestimated. That really shouldn't. I think it does. I think the video games all too often get brushed off as just being kid stuff or whatever, but if you really look at some of the greatest video games ever made, I mean, they truly are. They're some of the greatest art pieces ever made. It's certainly better than anything fucking Mark Rothko ever made. If you don't know who Mark Rothko is, go type in Mark Rothko in a Google search engine. And I want you to know that he's one of the most revered modern artists of our time. I paid a lot of money for art school. See you next time.